You're listening to Bible Truth Feed, a podcast by christadelphianvideo.org for Christadelphians and all those seeking the truth about the Bible message. Join us now as we present our latest episode.
The reason why we want to talk about this subject is because we want everybody here to be fully aware we're not following cunningly devised fables. And if you want to be absolutely 100% assured that that is the case, you've only got to look at Israel. Now, I know we can prove God's existence in so many different ways: archaeology, creation, all the beauties of creation. We can look at scientific evidence of the Bible. We can look at so many different ways. The compilation of the Bible's taken place. We can look at all of those things, but sometimes it's not quite enough to get us across the line. Without a shadow of a doubt, Israel will get us across the line, and it'll get people out there that might have an interest in the Bible. It'll get them across the line as well, because God says, out of all the things that you can prove that I exist, there's none greater than the nation of Israel. That's what we read. David read that for us in Isaiah 43. I think these are some of the most important words of our Bible, because what God is doing here is he's holding out a challenge to all the nations. He's throwing it out there. He's saying, righto, all you other nations, bring to the table your proof that your gods are real, that they exist. The Assyrians, the Philistines, and all the Babylonians, the whole gamut of nations around Israel. Come on, bring to the table, bring into the courtroom, if you like, because we're using a little bit of court language here when we use the word witnesses. Bring it into the courtroom, and I want to see proof that your gods are real. There's silence. Nobody brings anything. Total silence. Now it's my turn, says God. And he grabs hold of that nation of Israel and he brings them in and he plonks them in the witness stand and he says, I want everybody, any generation throughout history, look at that people and you will see that I exist, that I am God. And so Israel are very, very important for our understanding of the scriptures. They are the heartbeat of our hope. They are the central prime reason why God is doing everything he's doing to bring about his plan and purpose, and we need to understand that. So we haven't followed cunningly devised fables. In fact, there will be a time in our life, and you may have gone through this as I have, and sometimes it happens just in moments of insecurity and uncertainty in our lives. You might go through that stage where you go, is it all real what we believe? Is God really alive? Is this whole society around us going to change completely to an agricultural society, no big cities? And sometimes in our mind, and living in the 21st century the way we do, we can have these little insecure doubts in our mind. Well, the question is God real? You only got to rearrange those letters up there without adding any letters to it and taking any letters away, and you'll have your answer. Is God real? This is inescapable. The two are linked together. God, Israel, linked together. You cannot divide those two. You want proof that God is real? Just look at Israel. So we're going to go through very quickly a bit of a journey together, and hopefully by the end of this little presentation, you're going to come away with your heart beating a little bit louder and more prominent, being excited about this nation of Israel. Israel's remarkable survival, their remarkable revival as a nation, their survival throughout history. I know I'm preaching to the converted because you know a lot of this, and a lot of this is regurgitating things we already know, but that's, I think, an important thing, and particularly important for our Sunday school scholars and teenagers that are growing up through the ranks, because they need to be really aware of this. I'm going to consistently make mention of this throughout the presentation because this is important. God is continually telling us to keep coming back to that nation of Israel. Come back to that nation of Israel because they are my witnesses that I am alive. A few facts about Israel. And we'll make this quick because it is interesting. Well, I hope you find it interesting. There's a map of the United States of America. If I'm in your way, just say, yeah, I bet I'm in your way. You sure? Okay. Just say, can you move out the way, please, Australian speaker? You're holding up the screen. And I'm moving away. Sorry for those on Zoom if I move a little bit in and out of the screen. There's a map of the United States of America, which I know you're all familiar with. And I'm going to superimpose over the top of that 3 sizes of Israel, the same shape of Israel, over the top of this map. I'm going to ask the question, and how big do you think Israel actually is in conjunction with America? So let's go. There's number 1, there's number 2, and there is number 3. So there's the 3 sizes, all right? One of them, we want to know which one is right. So hands up those that think number 1. Israel is size number 1? No. Those that think number 2? Number 3? Okay, interesting. Very interesting. All right. So it's not number 1. It's not number 3. And everyone's going, oh, I was about to put my hand up for number 2. Well, guess what? And I noticed David didn't put his hand up because he's been there 3 times and he knows that's not even right either. Israel's not even number 2. Here's how big Israel is to the size of America. Can you see that? Israel will fit, and I'll put it into Texas because I did this presentation down at the Bible school. It'll fit 450 times into the United States, 31 times into Texas, and 4.7 times into your state. That's how little Israel is. It's a baby, small, tiny country. And yet it appears in world affairs and in world politics 50 times more than any other country, including your own, including Russia, including China. It will appear in the media 50 times more than any other country on the planet per head of population. Why? Because God's put them in the witness box. And he's saying to everybody, when you look at that nation, you will see me working in that nation. Make no mistake about it. So just how tiny is Israel? They are a minuscule, tiny, little nation that has garnered the world's attention since their modern day inception, since 1948. And how tiny are they? Well, they make up just 0.25% of the landmass of the Middle East, 0.25%. It makes up just 0.004% of the world's landmass. I mean, we're talking just this is minuscule, absolutely a minor dot on the planet, grain of sand on the beach of so much sand. Its population is only 0.1% of the world's population. It's the only country ever in the history of mankind that has never lost its identity and never lost its culture. It lost its land, for sure, for nearly 2,000 years, but it never lost its identity, never lost its culture. You can go anywhere in the world today. In fact, I think we had a little discussion last night with David and Kathy and Ron and Deb about the Jewish community around Richmond. They've still got their synagogues. They have their identity. Some of them don't believe they're secular, but a lot of them still have their identity and culture. They don't leave it. You can go down to Argentina and you'll find synagogues down there. You can go to virtually any country where there's Jews and there'll be a culture. It is unique. Why? Why is that? Because they're God's witnesses. He's putting these people out there for a reason. And he wants people to be convinced that he is well and truly alive. He's bringing about his plan and purpose, and Israel are the proof of it. You've all heard of the Nobel Prizes that are awarded each year for literature, for science, for peace, physics, medical. There's these Nobel Prizes are awarded, and they're very, very prestigious award to win. The global Islamic population is about 1.2 billion, so it's 20% of the world's population. They've received the following Nobel Prizes, all right? I find this one here very interesting. Yasser Arafat Nobel Peace Prize for 1994. He was the head of the terrorist organisation, the PLO, but he won the Peace Prize. So it does show that these prizes don't seem to be terribly stable in there when they hand these things out. But there they are. They've done pretty well. They've done a lot better than Australia. I mean, we haven't won that many. USA has won quite a few, but look how many the Muslim population have actually won. There's probably a few more since that's been done. But now we come to the Jewish population, and they're worldwide 14 million Jews in the world, about 0.02% of the world's population. So when we said 0.01%, we're talking about the Jews in the land. Overall, 0.02, not 20%. So very small, minuscule amount of people around the world. Here's how many Nobel Prizes they have been awarded. So it's not a bad effort, is it? They are a very clever, smart people in so many different areas, not just in their militaries, their prowess, their computers, in everything, medicine, literature, science, the whole gamut, chemistry, peace. They did get some peace awards, but have a look at that. Now, we don't put them on a pedestal to say, wow, they are better than anybody else, but God's done this because God says, I'm putting them in the witness box. I want you to look at that, people, and see me. I'm working behind the scenes to make them stand out. I will make them an astonishment. I'll make them a byword. I'll make them a proverb. Everywhere you go in the world, people have heard of the Jews. Usually it's spat out with a bit of disdain. To call a person a Jew is sometimes mostly an insult. But God says, I'm going to make them like that because I want you to really hone in on that nation and have a look at what's going on. So where did it all start? Bit of a Sunday school lesson, but it's sometimes good to come back to the history of Israel. It all started with this man, didn't it? Abraham. God scouring the world, looking for someone that he thought would be very suitable to start his plan and purpose with a nation. And he found this man over in Ur of the Chaldees. And he could see there was something very, very special about this man here. And so he made him promises. And we know the promises, and there were quite a few promises made to the fathers, including Abraham, but this is one that we all know from growing up through the Sunday school. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those that bless you, curse those that curse you, and all peoples of the earth will be blessed through you. That really hasn't been fulfilled, because I wouldn't classify Israel as a great nation in the sense of the world is thinking how wonderful they are. However, parts of that have, those that have blessed Israel, generally you look through history, have been blessed, including your own country here. United States of America, since the inception of Israel, have given more money as a nation to Israel in support and recognition of that country than any other nation on the planet. United States of America, I think last count was something like $13,000 per head of real population have been given to Israel. That's phenomenal. And I think it's fair to say America in certain ways have been blessed. I think they've sort of fallen off the perch a little bit of recent times, but at the end of the day, since World War II, America has shot to the forefront and other nations have subsided. You remember England, United Kingdom? They certainly didn't support Israel after the war. They were a thorn in the side of Israel when they first started coming back to the land in their droves. England abstained from the United Nations vote to have a country. That Israel and the prickly relationship they had with Israel right at the very beginning in their 1947, 48. And I think England suffered as a result of that. They sort of went downhill a little. America went up, England went down. And we can see a little bit of that happening. But you will see in a moment how those that have tried to wipe the Jews out, we'll see just how that's worked out. But anyway, getting back to this lesson of Abraham. Abraham, of course, had two sons. One from Hagar, the maidservant. He had Ishmael, who was the oldest. And, of course, from Sarah, he had Isaac. God chose to work through that lineage, through his wife Sarah, not through Hagar, not through Ishmael. Interesting enough, Ishmael went on to have 12 sons, and they became the father of the Arab race. All right. Isaac, on the other hand, had Jacob, and he had 12 sons, and they became the father of the Jewish race. So Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are the three founding fathers of the Jewish race through which God worked to bring about his nation of Israel. So they're blood related. The Arabs and the Jews are blood related because they all will tell you definitively that Abraham is their father, and that is correct, factually correct, through Ishmael or through Isaac. This is something that's not really happening. We're looking for the day when that will happen, seriously happen, when Jew and Arab will combine once again as blood brothers, and that will happen only after the return of the Lord Jesus Christ to this earth. We're jumping forward now quite a few hundred years, and we come to a man called Moses. Israel by this stage, 70 of them come down from the Jacob and his family from the north. They come down and they make their home under Joseph in Egypt, and there they actually increase phenomenally, very quickly in size to possibly a population around 2 million. And then the Pharaoh arose that knew not Joseph and suddenly looked at this massive amount of people that had just grown exponentially. And he said, they're a threat to our existence. We're going to make life tough for them. We're going to start breeding them out of existence because this is not good for our own existence. And God could see this was happening. There was a cry that went up to heaven. You know, we need assistance, we need help. And God raised this man up, Moses. And it took Moses really 80 years of preparation to get him ready to bring his people, or God's people, out of Egypt. And he does. But here's something very important. This is key, absolute key to our understanding of God's relationship with Israel, our understanding of what Israel's gone through. Because this is the point, I think, that proves God's existence without a shadow of a doubt. So the first introduction that Moses had with God, what was it? What was the first introduction that Moses had with God? Just throwing it out there. Burning bush. Absolutely correct, the burning bush. Now, if you were God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, and you wanted to impress a man of just how powerful you are, and what work you had in store for this servant you'd chosen, Moses, would you not rend the heavens and lightning and thunders and split the mountains in two, because he's out in the wilderness in the Midian desert, and you could have done all of these things to absolutely shake the ground Moses was on to prove it's how strong, how powerful you are, and how I've chosen you to lead the people. No. What does God do? He sets fire to a little bush. It's not a terribly amazing miracle to set fire to a little bush, except for one thing. Moses, as he's getting closer towards it, you could imagine him shielding his face because of the intense heat of that bush. But every time he looked at it, he said, that bush is staying green. It's not burning. What's God trying to tell me here? Well, of course, we know that story, but this is fundamental to our full realization of why we can believe that God is in control, especially with this earth, but especially with that nation. So what do we learn about this burning bush? What do we know about this little bush that was burning but staying evergreen? What's it all about? Well, the first thing we know about the terminology in Scripture is flames equals trials. The bush equals Israel. They're painted as a bush, they're painted as a tree, they're painted, but flames generally is always concerning trials and tribulations and difficulties. And we've got some proofs to back this up, because Malachi says, I am the Lord, I change not. Therefore, you sons of Jacob, reference to Israel, are not consumed. When thou, Israel, and this is in our reading that David read for us, when thou, Israel, walk through the fire, thou shalt not be burned, neither will the flame kindle upon you. It will not wipe you out. Now, of all the peoples on the face of the earth, it is generally accepted that the Jewish people have been the most persecuted people since their inception as a country, not 1948. We're going back 3,000 odd more years ago under Moses and in the Promised Land, even when they were in Egypt. There has never been a people on this planet that has ever been so persecuted with the flames of trial like the Jewish people. And we can even identify with that from modern day history. So who are the nations and who are the peoples that have tried to make life difficult for the Jews over the past 3,000 years? Well, we can start with Egypt, can't we? The Philistines, the Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, the Greeks. The Greeks didn't try to wipe the Jews out, but when Alexander passed off the scene, we know that the Greeks put a lot of influence and pressure on Israel, taxed them heavily, and so on. So they made life difficult. Romans tried to wipe the Jews out. The Byzantinians tried to, anywhere they came across Jews, they did. The Crusaders, the Christians, everywhere they came across Jews, they massacred them because they killed our Messiah. The Spanish, Nazi Germany, I don't have to tell you what happened there. Even today, we got peoples wanting to wipe out the Jews. Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, they want to wipe the Jews out. Where is the mighty Egyptian empire today? Where is the Philistines? They were a powerhouse in the times of Israel of old. Where's the great Assyrian empire? The Babylonian empire, one of the great 7 wonders of the world, the hanging guards of Babylon. Persia, magnificent empire. Where have they gone? Where's the Greeks? Where's the Roman Empire? The one that was going to just take over and rule the world forever and a day. Where's Nazi Germany today? Hitler had this grandiose idea that his empire was going to last 1,000 years. The Third Reich, nothing was going to be like it. Where have they all gone? Well, that's exactly where they've gone. Finished. Their empires are finished. Sure, Egypt's there now. They're a base nation. Their power is gone. God says, those that prey upon you, Israel, I will give as a prey. He has swept the history clean of those nations that tried to wipe Israel out, but he's preserved Israel. Where is Israel today? They're back in the land. They're powerful. They're strong, economically very viable. They've taken the world by storm. The people of today, political analysts of today, look at that nation and they use the word phenomena. They cannot work out how this has possibly happened. We know how it's happened because God's with them and he's bringing about his plan and purpose. And we put a little note here, who's next? We can probably put Ezekiel 38, Russia and all her confederate powers will be the next ones that will go. So Israel, of course, has endured an enormous amount of trial and tribulation throughout their history. And the Jewish diaspora, the sending out of Israel out of the land and then bringing him back again was the next part of God's plan. Of course, when the Romans came along, it was prophesied that they would be scattered throughout the then known world. The Romans had one intent with the Jews, and the Jews were one of the biggest thorns in the side of the Roman Empire that you could imagine. And they just had enough. By the time AD 70 comes along, that was it. The Jews just have to go. There's only one way we're going to do it. We're going to siege the whole of the country. We're going to lay siege to their capital city in Jerusalem. They killed over 1 million people just in that one city alone. And a lot more were killed as well throughout the whole land. And their intent was this: we're going to get hold of these Jews and we're going to send them back out into the then known world, back down into Egypt that Rome had control of, up into Europe, into areas of Cappadocia and Turkey, and we're going to send them out with the absolute belief that the Jewish people will breathe themselves out of existence. That'll be it. They'll be finished, gone. God says, nope. Sure, they're going to get taken away because I prophesied that this would happen, but they will never, ever, 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 ever be put out of existence. You can set as much fire as you want under that bush. You will never burn that bush out of existence. It'll stay green because I'm with that people and I'm going to ensure that they stay evergreen. And then God says, well, not only am I going to send you out, I'm going to leave you out there for a long, long, long time till they're just like scattered bones in the dusty desert. And then one day I'm going to bring you back again. and I'm going to return you back to your land. And we know Ezekiel 37 and how amazing that prophecy actually is. And God says, I will bring you into your own land, and I will make you one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel. This is a prophecy 2,500 years old. And God's saying, I'm going to send you out into all the world, never going to let you fade out of existence, but then I'm going to gather you again and I'm going to bring you back. The question is, how is God going to do that? What a monumental task that would be to get all the Jews, not all of them, but enough Jews to come back and ensconce themselves back in their ancient homeland. How is he going to do it? He tells us how he's going to do it. He tells us in Jeremiah. He says, I will send for many fishers and they will fish you back to the land. And then I'm going to send hunters and they will hunt you back. Two processes here that I want you to follow this with me. Two processes about to take place to bring Israel back to the land. It wasn't going to happen overnight. It was going to happen in a process. You know, when all the bones in the vision Ezekiel was given of the bones, the valley of bones, all each of them coming together, there's a process. A skeleton wasn't suddenly formed. It was all the bones connecting, and then there was sinews, and then there was the muscle system, and then there was, you know, all the different processes as outlined in Ezekiel 37. You can almost put dates alongside of each one of those of what actually occurred, starting right back from the fishes, which we'll explain in a moment. And then suddenly God breathes into that body that's been formed, once again, the breath of life, and they become a nation once again. 47, the United Nations vote, May 1948, a nation once again. Let's have a look at these fishermen. Probably the greatest fisherman that God raised up to try and fish Israel back was this man here. His name was Theodore Herzl. What a character he was. Unbelievable character. And he decided that it was time that he could see the writing was on the wall that the Jews were starting to be persecuted in Europe. I won't go into the details of that, but he could see that we really need to sort out a homeland for the Jews. And so he started the Zionist movement. And God says, I'm going to raise people like this up to get the ball rolling, the stepping stones towards Israel becoming a land. Now, God said this, and this is really interesting. I hope you can follow this with me. God says, I'm going to bring you into your own land. I'm going to make you your nation again in the mountains of Israel. How was he going to do it? Well, he was going to use fishermen to fish them back. Now, Theodore Herzl desperately tried to get Palestine, because that was under the control of the Ottoman Empire. Turkey had control of Palestine at the time of Theodore Herzl in the 1890s. And he went down, he met with the Sultan, he had a few meetings. He was desperate to see whether he could get approval to call Palestine a homeland for the Jews. Well, you could imagine how that was met. Totally wiped off the table instantly. The Sultan said, there's no way that's ever going to happen. You're not coming back here. This is our land. You know, sorry, but no thanks, that's not going to happen. So Theodore Herzl was extremely desperate. So he approached the British government and said, can you help us get Palestine? They said, we can't help you get Palestine. We don't control Palestine. How are we ever going to help you there? But the British government was sympathetic to the cause of the Zionist movement, and they had control of Uganda. And Uganda was offered to Theodore Herzl and the Zionist movement to be a homeland for the Jews. And it became known as the Ugandan policy in 1903. They were about to be handed on a plate a very, very resourceful country, full of resources, country, far better than the desert of Palestine. Dust Bowl was absolutely hopeless. You couldn't compare that with Uganda. And Britain said, you know what, we're prepared to let you take control of Uganda and make that a homeland. Well, it wasn't the number one choice of Theodore Herzl, but he knew he could never get Palestine, and he had some support, some against, but some support that they were going to accept the British offer of having Uganda as a homeland. Now, this makes life interesting. I wonder what the Christadelphians were thinking when they were reading this in the 1890s. All right. I just wonder how they felt. Robert Roberts had passed off the scene by this stage, but there would have been Christadelphians going, well, that doesn't fit Ezekiel 37, because God said, I'm going to bring them back into their own land. And Bible prophecy is the history in which, is the mould into which history is being poured. And this man was about to break the mould, because he was seriously, he was very, very, very close to signing off on the Uganda policy. Was this man going to be successful in breaking God's mould, his prophecy? And had he been successful, here's where Israel would have been today. You would have had the nation of Israel right smack bang central west of Africa. That's where they would have been. They would have signed off, and that's the homeland for Israel. God says, you don't read my prophecies, do you? I said, I'm bringing you back into your own land. Now, let's just refresh our memory of what the Bible said. Prophecy, God's going to take control of this. I'm going to bring you back into your own land, and I am going to make sure it is your own land, and it's going to be the mountains of Israel. That is the prophecy. What did God do about that? A few weeks before this man is ready, he's getting all the paperwork together. He's got some support. Yes, he's got some anti as well in the Zionist movement, but he's got two major players right with him that are saying, let's do this. Let's sign off. Let's get this done. And this man is the chairman of the board. He is number one. He's ready to sign off. Suddenly dies of a heart attack, age 44. Taken off the scene, just like that. The whole Uganda policy was taken off the table. You don't have this man driving, you don't have anyone driving it. God will do what he wants. He'll set up those he wants in power, whether it's ruling nations or ruling committees, ruling Zionist movements. And the moment they start to walk in a direction that is not conducive to what God has said, you can be 100% certain he'll just take them out of the way and pave the way for somebody else to take over. And somebody else did take over, and that was this man. This man was called Cain Wiseman, a very smart biochemist who had immigrated into England, extremely influential in the government, because this man invented synthetic cobalt or acetone, which is gunpowder. And England was in desperate need for gunpowder to be fighting all their wars that they were fighting all over the place at that period of time. This man was seen as a bit of a saviour to the military power of the United Kingdom. He was on the Zionist committee, and he was totally opposed to the Uganda policy, wouldn't have a bar of it. He said, no, it's got to be Israel. It's got to be Israel. Well, he rose to the prominence in the Zionist movement, and he requested an audience with the Prime Minister of England. And that audience took place in 1905. You know who the Prime Minister was in 1905? The Prime Minister of England in 1905 was a man by the name, and you will know this name as soon as I tell you, Lord Balfour was Prime Minister in 1905, later became Foreign Minister after the First World War. He was Prime Minister. Cain Wiseman and Lord Balfour had this the most amazing conversation in a hotel room, and it went something like this. So here's the two men. Lord Balfour, Cain Wiseman in a hotel room. Lord Balfour initiates the conversation by saying, we are at a loss as to why you did not continue on to take Uganda as your homeland. What was wrong with you? Why would you want to come back to Palestine? We have no power to give you Palestine. Why do you keep harping on that country? Uganda is far better. It's a greener pastures. It's much more stable area to have. And it was ours to give you. Palestine's not even in the equation. What is wrong with you? Cain Wiseman said, Lord Balfour, or Mr. Prime Minister as he was, if I was to tell you that you could no longer have London as your capital city of the United Kingdom, how would you feel about that? And with that, Lord Balfour just gave the real good British laugh, Oh, don't be daft, man, he said. London has been at the heart of the English people for 1,000 years. To which Cain Wiseman looked him in the eye and said, with all due respect, Mr. Prime Minister, Jerusalem and Israel have been at the heart of the Jewish people when London was a swamp. That's all he said. Lord Balfour remembered that conversation. He remembered that conversation. And 12 years later, the whole circumstances of the Middle East had changed. General Allenby and can I just add, the Australians and the British forced the Turks out of Beersheba, out of Palestine, pushed them right back up into Turkey, and the British took control of Palestine. Another monumental, fantastic fulfillment of prophecy. Ezekiel 37, part of the bones coming together, you can put a date in there, 1914, when Palestine came under the control of the British. And this man, Lord Balfour, became the foreign minister in 1917, and he wrote the Balfour Declaration, which said, as the part of it said, His Majesty King of England then, government view with favour the establishment in Palestine as a national home for the Jewish people. God rules in the kingdom of men, brothers and sisters and young people. He's in charge. He's bringing about what he wants, and Israel back into that land, not straight away, but they had now the stepping stone ready for a homeland. But did people flock back? No. The Jews didn't flock back. They never came back to the Desert Bowl. Why would they? Their life was fantastic, but predominantly most Jews lived in Europe. They weren't going to leave their beautiful, fantastic, wealthy businesses and their grandiose homes they lived in to go back to a dust bowl. There was no trees in Palestine. You know why there's no trees in Palestine? Because the silly Turkish government were short of money, and so they taxed everybody that had a tree. If you have a tree in your front yard, you're going to have to pay tax to have that tree. So everyone went out and cut their trees down. It became a shocking dust bowl. Palestine was, no one's going to trade their lifestyle in Europe to go back to that dust bowl. God knew that, didn't he? He said, so hunters are going to come, and the hunters are going to hunt you back to that land. And there's no greater hunter in the history of the Jewish race than that man there. He and his henchmen hunted the Jews back to the land. The word of God says they'll be hunted from every crevice, from every hole, from every cave. And he sent his henchmen out into all of Europe, into the cellars of people's homes, into the attics. Anne Frank, he found them all, not all of them, but he found a lot of them, most of them, many of them, 6 million of them. And he was determined to exterminate the Jewish people. They lost their wealth, they lost their businesses, they lost family, they lost everything. This was a very fiery trial in Israel's history. Did they fade out of existence? Were they completely annihilated? No, they were not. But what that man achieved, as cruel as it was to destabilise the European Jewry, the Jews in Europe. He took away everything, and they couldn't wait to get back to their homeland, to the Dust Bowl. They had nowhere else to go. Many of them returned from the Holocaust that survived. Their houses had been gone, had been razed or been taken over by others. They had nothing. And they came in droves back to Israel. I'll send you fishermen to pave the way, and they did. Cain Wiseman became the first president, not prime minister, first president of Israel because of his work in paving that way. God used him. Then the hunters came along and did the next step. When you look at this graph, here's the fishermen over here. Fishermen started right back here in the 1890s, and they started a collective movement to get Israel back to the land. Never really took off. Then the hunters came along and straight up. The hunters played a significant role in getting Israel back to the land. I will get you back there. Might not be a pretty picture, but I'm going to get you back there. And boy, did they come back. They flooded back to that land. God said it'll happen. You're my witnesses that I exist. You want proof, brothers and sisters, that we're not following cunningly devised fables? They're not wasting our time coming to meetings. We're not wasting our time doing readings. We're not wasting our time sending kids to Sunday school. We're not wasting our time doing any of that, because Israel is proof that God is in existence, because he's bringing about this whole plan and purpose with Israel. And this year they celebrated 74 years. A very young nation, modern day nation, state of Israel was born. Persuasive proof of Bible prophecy is remarkable. Israel was born in 1948 as a result of the United Nations vote. God achieved what he said he would achieve. And here is the key to this quote. And this is something which I think is very, very vital. And we've gone through this quote a number of times. He says, God says, we could put dates alongside that. I have spoken it and I have performed it. He spoke this 2,500 years ago and he performed it in 1948. Now, my mum and dad came into the truth as a result of that event. That was the deciding factor in my mum and dad's life, that this book was real and that God is real and that the plan and purpose God has with this earth is also real. That was the connecting thought, the convincing event that caused them to come into the truth. I'm very thankful for Israel. So that's why I love going to Israel whenever we can. I know David's been, I know Kathy's been. I don't know, has anyone else been to Israel? You've been, David? It's something about that nation that is very special. And of course it is. They're God's chosen people. So the prophecies of Israel, brothers and sisters and young people, are sensational. And I'm looking at this young man down here. I've forgotten what your first name is, but I understand you have a real interest in Israel. Keep it up. Keep it up, all right? Because as you get older, they will become a driving force in your life to know that you are not wasting your time coming to Sunday school, listening to mum and dad tell you all the stories about the Bible. It is real. It is going to happen. And Israel are our proof. So just in conclusion, brothers and sisters, there's modern day Israel. They have gone leaps and bounds ahead, not in a godly direction. We know that's the case. Paul said that, blindness in part has happened to Israel. They've got a veil over their eyes. 2/3 of them don't even believe in God. It's amazing. They're secular. But he's still working with that nation. He's bringing about his plan and purpose. And when you think of where they've been just over, 80 years ago, that's Israel. There's the burning bush 80 years ago. That's Israel. That's the Jews. That's them. And that you probably couldn't have got a more hotter blowtorch in their history than just in our lifetime or our parents' and grandparents' lifetime. That's what was happening. That's a famous picture, by the way. And I don't know, about 5 or 6 years ago, that person, they found him still alive in England. He survived. Old man now, he might be dead, I don't know, but it was quite incredible. That's a famous picture. A lot of people will recognise that picture straight away. But that's the fiery trials of Israel, brothers and sisters and young people. And here they are today. They're back in the land. They're powerful, the only democratic nation in the whole of the Middle East. It's just phenomenal. That's what the world uses, that word, phenomenon. It's not a phenomenon to us because we know that God's chosen them. We know he's working with them. And we can clearly see the word and the hand of God working in the lives of Israel, of that nation. I'm with you, says the Lord. I'm going to save you. Though I make a full end of all nations I have scattered you, I will not make a full end of you. And what is the secret to the miraculous survival of Israel? What actually can we put in the centre of the Star of David? Very obvious what the secret is. It's God. No secret to us because he's behind them and he's working. And I'll leave you with this slide because this is something we need to know. The story's not over yet with Israel. There's another page to be turned from survival to revival. And in that wonderful prophecy in Ezekiel chapter 37, we have these words. I know we've spoken about it before, but we haven't considered this little part here. I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel. He fulfilled that. And he goes on to say, and one king shall be king to them all. We read in our reading, Zedekiah, the last king of Israel, of Judah. Never been a king. You know, they even produced postage stamps to make David Ben-Gurion the king of Israel. They actually produced stamps because they weren't sure which way they were going to head with Israel. God said, well, no, hang on, I'm not going to let you do that. That's not going to happen because the next king of Israel is the Lord Jesus Christ. There's never been a king in Israel since Zedekiah. And God says one king will be king to them all. He who comes, whose right it is, I'll give it to him. That's the Lord Jesus Christ, nobody else. And when they presented these postage stamps to David Ben-Gurion, he looked at that and said, what are you doing? We're not going down the track of me being a king or anyone being a king of Israel. We're not setting up that type of a political system. He said, and these were his words, I have no desire to be the next King David. That was his words. And I think God put those words in his mouth. So we're waiting for this event here. We're waiting for this event here. But if ever you get an opportunity, go to your margin of Ezekiel chapter 37, because you can put a little pencil mark that between that comma and that statement comes Ezekiel 38. That's got to go right there. And we are seeing that starting to all come together. Russia starting to make their grand move, as Brother Thomas says. When you see these things start to come, let the reader know that as all things as at first constituted are at hand. We are seeing it, brothers and sisters. How much more we're going to see, we don't know. All we know is that Christ is coming very soon, and we need to be ready for that incredible event. So next time we have any doubts, next time we think, are we wasting our time being part of this community, being part of the believers of this book, just look at Israel. All those doubts will disappear. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you found the episode helpful. Don't forget, most of these episodes are also available as videos on our video channel, cdvideo.org. So head over and take a look. If you have any comments or questions or suggestions, please get in touch or leave us a voice message. We love to hear your feedback. You can email us at btf@cdvideo.org. If you enjoyed the episode, then please share it with others. Until next time, may God bless you in your studies and your walk towards God's kingdom. Amen.